Welcome to the show. It's time to unwind with Dave B and Dave D, the best brews you'll find. Craft beer talk, it's a passion we share. From hops to malts, we're taking you there. This is Daftaboutcraft, where the good times flow. Sit back and relax, let the flavors glow. Brews, news, and views, we've got it all right. Cheers to craft beer, let's raise it tonight.
Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast.
It seems very late to be saying this, but Happy New Year from Daftaboutcraft, and welcome to episode 79 of our craft beer podcast with me, Dave D.
And me, Dave B.
We had a month off, didn't we, Dave?
It was largely by design, wasn't it? We certainly thought we'd have at least the first half of January off, and then unfortunately illness ravaged our household, and I had sinusitis, which completely bocked me for the end of the month. So it was annoying because I was ready to go. I did dry January, which we'll talk about later, but I'd allowed myself that I was going to have one night to do our recording, or maybe two, when we were ready to go. I felt so rotten that we had to wait until February.
So you did complete dry January then. The podcast didn't ruin it. You got all the way through it. We'll talk about that later on. What else have we got coming up on this episode, Dave?
Our interview is Mike Mason, who is Mason Brew Co.
Yeah, Mike's beers are sensational. I think he's one of the real unsung heroes of the beer world out there. Not many people know about him, so it'd be really nice to spread the word about him, and you can find out much more about Mason Brewing. On our last episode, I had a mystery beer, and it was a plum porter. So we decided we're going to do something with plum porters, didn't we?
We did, because the gold standard is Titanic, and we've talked about Titanic before. So we've both got a Titanic, but we've also got some other pretenders from other breweries, because it does feel like it's become an increasingly popular style. I didn't struggle to get hold of alternative plum porters either in the supermarket or from other breweries. So I've got a couple of different ones, and you've got a couple of different ones as well.
Yeah, so we're pitting those against the OG, the Titanic plum porter, see which is best. We've got tried and tested, all sorts of stuff along the way, but we'll kick it off with From the Fridge. Now, for those who haven't heard it, Dave, what is From the Fridge?
Our fridges generally are quite well stocked, and there might be things in there knocking around that have been in there months, in some cases even years. So what we are going to do as we go along is, it might be that the beer is produced for us by sleight of hand and we don't know what it is, or we might just find something in the back of the fridge and think, haven't had one of their beers for a while, let's try that.
So what have you got? So
I have got friend of the podcast, Gareth Gruff, who has given me a couple of L9s. And an L9 is a Lef, so it's a Belgian-style beer, which we will get to in due course, because one of us got to go to Belgium in January. But it is turned up to 11, as they say, for Spinal Tap. This is 9.9%, but it is very much in the amber, rather than sort of your Lef is a blonde, isn't it?
Yes.
And this is darker for sure. Smells Belgian-y, not quite as sweet, that Belgian-y yeasty smell, but it's definitely there. Okay, that's quite interesting.
So first off, would it remind you of Lef, which isn't 9.9% or whatever you said?
No, but they do have, so they have Lef Blonde, don't they? And they also have Lef Brewing, and it's more akin to the brewing, which isn't a surprise. There's a slightly, I don't want us to come across in the wrong way, there's a slightly medicinal quality to it because of the strength. It's quite full, but it's quite full, almost a little bit aniseedy, I want to say. I've got to go back in. Yeah, that sort of slightly aniseedy, cough, syrupy taste. I can't stress enough, not unpleasant, but it's got that kind of feel to it. Quite full, but then dries out quite quick. Doesn't taste of 9.9, which is a bit worrying. It could go down a bit too quickly, but it's an interesting beer. It does work. Leave that with me a little bit, because I suspect it might develop a bit more.
I never realised until I went to Belgium, I went to Bruges, that there aren't just those two Lefs, there are other ones as well.
There's a few breweries like that have more styles that are in their domestic market, but obviously once they export them, not all of them make it across.
Yeah, it's a real eye-opener, that was. Well, you can sip away on that. I have got a beer which has been poured out for me into my glass. It's a It's a big yellowy, orangey beer. Got to show you. I've got the can here, but it's concealed, so I don't know what it is. And it is concealed in a dog poo bag. It is empty now. The whole of the can is in that glass.
I hope the dog poo bag's empty as well.
I know, well, yeah, apart from the can, yeah. Thanks to my wife Lisa for that one. So I've no idea what this is. All I know is this has come from my fridge. Could be anything. Oh God, I'm having flashbacks of trying to guess mystery beers from before Christmas. It's hard, isn't it, Dave?
It's hard with the style you've got there. Unless there's a real dominant hop in a pale, it's a bit of a, not a minefield, but it's very difficult to pick them out.
Wow, it's very stone fruity. I'd think it's at least 5%. A little bit of a bitter finish to it. I'm trying to think what I've got in the fridge what that could be.
Could you pick out one hop? I mean, Citra probably is in there, isn't it?
That's too easy, though, to just say that, isn't it? I like it. I'm going back to it quickly. It's nice. It's very nice. That is strong. Let me just digest that, have a little think about it. How's yours coming along?
It's not really changed, actually. I think it would be lethal to have more than one bottle of it. I can tell that because it's very drinkable. It's very smooth. Fair play to Gareth. It is a traditional gruff beer in that sense. Also worth saying, I think I possibly mentioned it previously, but hopefully, I don't know if it's going to go out beyond cask or keg, but Gareth has extended his brewing capacity. He'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's built a bigger bit in his garden. So he's doubled his capacity. So there should be more gruff beer around. Whether there will be a Gruff Fest 3 this year remains to be seen. We hope there will be.
I was going to ask if that beer was on cask anywhere.
I'm not sure.
Right. This beer of mine, I've got a few Polish beers in my fridge. I think it's one of those. I think this is really well brewed. It's got a lot of flavour, a lot of depth to it. I'm going to go for one of the Polish beers.
Okay. Where did you get some Polish beers from? Because they are very good.
There's a company that's called Polish Craft Beers who've started to import more and more of them to the UK, and they're popping up all over the place now, in can and on keg. And there's a few breweries, sort of 4 or 5, but they'll be expanding their portfolio as well. So you're going to start to see more Polish beers over here.
One of my favourite ever beers came from a trip to Gdansk. And the beer itself I know is called Jartowice. I can't remember who brews it, but I do know I checked it in on Untapped. And I desperately tried to find that beer. So I'm going to have a look on their website, see if they've got it. It'd be amazing if they did.
These Polish beers that I've had, I've been really impressed with. Right, I'm going to undo the dog bag. No, I'm completely wrong. It's from Coventry. Actually, I know the exact person who made this beer. I know exactly who brewed it, and he'll be absolutely delighted with what I just said. It's called It's Enormous from Twisted Barrel. And this was actually brewed by somebody who listens to this podcast. His name's Ben, and he helps to run Homebrew Club. And I went along to their awards night last season, and the prize for the winner was to brew on the Twisted Barrel main kit. And this is the beer that won.
And obviously seems a very worthy winner, judging by how you've talked about it.
Well, yeah, 6.2%.
You did say you thought it was strong.
New England IPA, that's very good. Ben gave me a couple of cans of this, and I haven't had it previously. I've still got one left in the fridge. But this is very impressive, actually. On the night when I tasted it, which is he brewed himself in his house, it was excellent. But this is now taking on a further dimension to it. Now it's been brewed on the Twisted Barrel kit.
Well, that's a ringing endorsement of the Coventry home brewing scene, which is great.
That home brewing scene has seen so many brewers go through there that have gone on to do really good things. Yeah, maybe Ben will go on to good things as well. That is superb. It's called It's Enormous by Twisted Barrel, 6.2% New England.
Daftaboutcraft, powered by Craft Brew Festival.
Now, down in Cornwall, there's a brewery that I think all our listeners should know about. It hasn't been going long. They make some wonderful beers, and we're joined by the man himself, Mike Mason of Mason Brewing Co. Tell our listeners all about yourself. Here's a platform. Tell our listeners how long you've been going and what you do down there.
So we set the tap room up in May 24, so just under 18 months in. Originally, I started putting the brewery together in August 23, so personally, it's been a 2-year experience. But yeah, open to the public since May. We're a fairly small brewery, so around 1,000 litres brew length. We brew pretty much every style I fancy, really. Just from Imperial Stouts through to sours and hazy pales, and predominantly sold in our tap room in through Milestone near Truro.
And before you got to this point of setting up on your own, what was your sort of background leading to Mason Brewing Company starting? How did you sort of get grounded in beer?
So I'm not originally from Cornwall. I moved here 5 or 6 years ago. I'm from near Burton-on-Trent in the Midlands. That kind of, half tells the tale. You can't really escape being in brewing. So from the get-go, really, from quite early on, I was drinking a lot of traditional microbrewed ales from the likes of Burton Bridge Brewery and places like that, and got really into my craft beer because of a couple of individuals that really pushed that around our local area. So I started homebrewing in my early 20s, and it was kind of just a gradual slide. Basically, anyone who has brewed will tell you it's kind of a rabbit hole once you get into it. So I decided to start helping out some local breweries. 4 or 5 breweries. I just started kind of doing cask washing and stuff on a Friday, a Saturday, Sunday, just to get some experience, really. And then decided I wanted a complete career change because I wasn't enjoying my job so much. 8 years ago, decided that I was just going to go for it, and managed to wing myself into a job at a chain of brew pubs called Brewhouse and Kitchen. So there's about 24, 25 of those around the country, and they're really good at just taking really passionate home brewers and turning them into commercial brewers, which seems like quite a daunting leap. I don't think it is with the standard of home brewing these days. So I was there for 2 or 3 years, and then moved to Cornwall. My wife got the opportunity to relocate, and we took it with both hands. I then got a job at Driftwood Spas Brewery in St Agnes. So that's probably one of the nicest views from a brewery in the country, I'd say. They're right on the coast, nestled away in St Agnes and Trelawney's Cove. So I ran that brewery for 4 years. With only English ingredients, which made it quite interesting. But it was, it was a real kind of learning, trying to squeeze everything we could out of those British ingredients, English. And then, decided to set Mason Brewing Co. up late 2023.
Glad you did it.
Yeah. It's been, I thought I ran a brewery at the Driftwood Spas, and I definitely didn't. There's a lot of things you do as a business person that brewing isn't involved. So on the days that I get to actually brew beer or put my efforts into recipe development, they're really good days. But I spend a lot of my time doing administration, which is, has to be done. Yeah. The days of brewing kind of 3-4 times a week were bliss looking back on that.
How do you find that now? Because we were sort of talking before we hit the record button, and the way my job is now, I see how people are running a very small enterprise, and they probably started doing the one element of it, which in this case would be the brewing, and loved it, and then thought, it'd be great to run a business, it'd be great to have my own brewery and do all that. And then actually the brewing becomes a really small part of the business and everything else gets so much bigger. Is it something that you've just had to learn to live with, or you sort of now are like, it's fine because like you say, I still get the good days, and actually doing everything as a whole is even better because I do get to see it from every angle now?
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit of a control freak when it comes to brewing.
The best normally are.
I've only ever been in roles where I've been able to dictate how the beer is treated from the entire process, including being served. So that's something that was kind of just an absolute given to me, that if I was going to ever set my own brewery, it'd have to be that way. All of those things that I do alongside brewing, I always knew that was going to come with them. So it wasn't really that much of a shock. It was kind of a natural progression for me. But I do enjoy a lot. But one thing that I probably wasn't quite aware of is how much noise you have to make for yourself. Self-promotion, especially social media. Not doing it isn't an option. It's as simple as that. Not creating content and not making sure you're at the forefront, because you just fall away so quick unless you do it.
It's like a job in itself, the social media side of it. It really is. Some accounts can go dormant and breweries go missing from their social media accounts, and you can't afford to do that, I don't think. I spend a lot of time looking at Instagram, and you'll go into a brewery's account and they haven't posted for like 3 months. I don't think you can do that, but you're really active and you're really on top of this.
Yeah, I'm not going to take much credit for that. My wife works in marketing, so she recently was made redundant, which gave me the opportunity to spend a bit more time with me. That's all her. I'm capable of it, but not great at it. But yeah, it's really interesting because she'll spend sometimes 3-4 hours on a video and it'll be 15 seconds long and it'll get so many likes, whatever, so much interaction, and then it's gone. And that's it. What's the next thing? And yeah, it's a very difficult industry to be in when it comes to social media and marketing.
Yeah, it's a really weird one to get your head around, and all you want to do is just make some lovely beers for people to drink, isn't it? You think, what am I wasting my time doing this for?
But then equally, you do get Herberts like us who, you make a lovely beer for us and we'll go, oh, that's really nice, like the one I'm just enjoying now, which we can talk about in a second, which is Mountain Songs. And I'll drink that and go, okay, what's next? And forget about it. So there are some parallels.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy that, brewing different beers and not sticking to the same beers. I love that part of brewing, and I love that part of being a small brewery. Like people like yourselves will never expect me just to have a core range and continue that core range. You'd be probably disappointed if I didn't keep releasing new beers, and that's exactly where I would be.
Is that a worry for you somewhat in some respects, though, that you've got to keep coming up with new ideas and putting new beers out there? I know you want to do that as an experimental brewer. You want to keep making new things, but do you sort of worry about it? Because if you've got a core range, you've just got to keep making the same beers, haven't you? There's a lot less stress, I imagine.
Not for me. If it's a different beer every time, there's no bar set for you to review against. Whereas if you've got two versions of my same beer next side by side, that's a living hell for me. So I'm fairly comfortable with doing new and weird stuff every time. There is an element because you often spend so much extra time developing recipes and artwork, labels, cans, getting those printed. So there is a lot of extra administration with new beers. So I guess I'm probably about 50-50. There are certain beers in our tap room that I just can't not have on because people come in specifically for those beers. And then there's usually 2 or 3 lines where people expect a change and something fresh.
Tell me you've still got the raspberry sour knocking around.
No, so that's all gone now. That was a rebrew, and I never thought I'd rebrew that because I thought it was a one-off. But yeah.
I'm not coming to Cornwall unless you've got the raspberry sour, mate. It's not happening. That is such an amazing beer. I've had this from you at a couple of craft brew festivals, and it is such a good beer. I love a sour, as you know, Dave, but this sour is just, even you would like it, and you hate sours.
Yeah, it's fair. I don't really like them. But I was going to say, actually, I don't know if I think you like them that much anymore because you don't drink nearly as many sours as you used to. So if you're actually saying it is a good sour, it probably is now because you used to drink all the sours and you probably now have refined it.
I've refined it, and now I want to drink really beautifully well-made sours that taste like real fruit. And this is a good one to pick. This, we can get you going on this one. How do you feel about certain breweries out there that have these multicoloured beers that they call sours that are just full of E numbers and they're bright blue and green and gloopy and you've got to shake the can to make the beer come out? As somebody who makes wonderful sours yourself, how do you feel about those types of beers? And is there a place for them?
Yeah, there's definitely a place for them. They're not beers that I personally drink, but I can see why. I think there's a shock factor, isn't it? And it makes headlines, and that's pretty much what everyone's going for these days. I know you mentioned E-numbers previously in your last podcast, and I'm definitely on board with you on that. For me as a brewer, I think there's definitely a place for them. Just, personally, I tend to just go for more balanced sours. So I tend to try and keep some sort of balance. Obviously, there's a load of fruit and sweetness going on in there, but
I just wonder how that'd go down in your tap room down there if you suddenly cracked open this bright green apple sour or something, what people would say.
We've had a couple of Vault City guest beers on, and they have probably sat a bit longer, but there are still people, even in deepest, darkest Cornwall, that love those types of beers. And I think they are still dragging people into the craft beer world that maybe wouldn't try a beer otherwise.
Yeah, a bit of me thinks people like what they want, but a little bit of me thinks their time is coming to an end, perhaps. And I also wonder what brewers think when they're making these beers. Do they want to make beers like that, or is it just to pull people in?
Probably to pull people in. It's a very easy way to create headlines, isn't it? Like I said earlier, if people hate it and they tell you they hate it, it's still interaction, there's still comments, and that's what people are trying to get.
We're talking about it now, aren't we? So yeah, it does work. What's your favourite style of beer to brew then? Because like you say, you do the whole spectrum. What really gets you going as a brewer? What's your favourite?
Stouts, without a doubt, I think. I love imperial stouts. I went through a phase of loving the really, really sweet kind of every dessert flavour you can think of. And I do tend to sometimes still brew those. But yeah, I just love the complexity and playing with different varieties of malted barley to get all of the intensity of the beers. But that's what I love doing. I don't like cleaning up afterwards, though, because it's an absolute mess. But they're fun brew days.
So sort of on that basis then, would it be fair to say a brewery like Emperor's or something, you would sort of think, yeah, if you could have a chance to do something with Damien, you'd be really up for it? Or is that sort of a dream type of collab?
Yeah, that would be great. Because, yeah, Damien's only Colville as well, which is about 10 miles from where I grew up.
He loves a collab as well.
Yeah, let's set the goal. Let's see if he's up for it. But that would be amazing. Obviously, the stuff he does and has done in the past is really cool, and really, I think, probably one of the leading stout brewers in the UK, if not probably Europe, I'd say.
Probably, I was going to say probably Europe. And I think just bringing that conversation full circle as well, like his stuff is big, it's imperial, it's boozy, it's sweet, and it will have adjuncts in. But at the same time, I still think of it as beer. The beers we were talking about there, and obviously you listened to the last episode, I don't know if I think of those as beer. When you're putting those things in, it sounds almost like it's a science lab creation rather than a brewing process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is getting to that stage with some beers. And like you said on the last one, if it's not got hops in, then there is a real argument there. Yeah, I really, really enjoy those types of beers, though, especially like Omnipollo as well. Noah, Pecan Mud Pie, that is just perfection.
Yes. Oh, I remember the first time having Noah. And then obviously it went into Morrison's and it still is available. It's not obviously quite the same beer, but the first Noah's and that was so good. So we've talked about stouts there, and I touched upon it just now because I'm just about to finish it. So I want to talk about it before I finish it and crack open the other can I've got. Completely different end of the scale. So I've had some of your beers before, thanks to Dave, but you kindly sent us some more. And I've just finished a can of Mountain Songs, which is your hazy session pale. Now, 3.6% beer, and I would say it is bang on for the ABV. It's not punchy, but the hop combination to do a 3.6, I don't think I've ever seen Strata being used at this sort of level. And it's really interesting. Like, the other thing as well with it is the thickness of it. Like the creamy sort of oat. I think I'm right in saying oats are in this, aren't they?
Yes, guys.
Yeah, it really. I love it when brewers put oats in beer because I hate the word, but I love the mouthfeel it gives beers and that really pulls it all together. But what was sort of thinking of Strata and Pacific Sunrise as a pairing for a session, because it's unusual for sure.
Yeah, so I'm going to be completely honest here. Pacific Sunrise was a hop that I wasn't aware of until my hop provider offered me a very good deal on it. And I read the tasting notes and I was thinking, you know what, like, this sounds great. It's a New Zealand hop. There's all of those topical kind of buzzwords you want to hear in a hop. So I thought I'd take a punt because it's not a very sexy hop. You don't hear of it very often. They released it in 2000. So,
oh, wow.
So yeah, I took a punt on it. And then I used Strata a fair bit anyway. I love, so Crosby and Indie hops, Oregon and Idaho, respectively. Those guys, I just love everything about them. They're to hops what small craft brewers are to brewing. They're like a small craft hop farm, basically. So whenever I can use Strata, I love it. And I think it's probably going to end up at Citra levels, I reckon, one day.
I hope so, because I think it's equal, isn't it? But Citra is dominant. But I'm with you. I love Strata.
That was the thinking behind the hop profiles. And the reason I went 3.6 was I've got another beer, Love Letter, which is Nelson Soden, Galaxy and Citra. And that just creates really nice first 4.4. So I figured, I reckon I could go lower. So it was an attempt at trying to go sessionable as possible, still with the body, such a sweetness and the tropical, like you said, not huge punch, but a bit more of a balanced punch.
Talking about Love Letter, I'm actually drinking Love Letter. What hops did you say were in there?
Nelson Sauvin, Galaxy and Citra.
I mean, I'm notoriously terrible at identifying hops in beers, but I would never, ever pick Nelson or Galaxy out of that.
Oh, really?
I mean that in the nicest possible way, because we talked before in the podcast about the sweaty socks of Nelson and the overpowering nature of Galaxy, but there's none of that. It's really, really lovely and well balanced, that is.
Yeah, so I avoided putting Galaxy in late in the dry hop just for that very reason. I didn't want any of that kind of sweaty flavour. I do love a hoppy beer, but I'm not a big fan of dank, sweaty, onion, green kind of flavours. And I know it's for other people that's great, but for me it's not. So I stuck with Citra and Nelson in the dry hop to try and remove that.
I'm just opening Love Letter, so I'm going to see if, well, I now know what's in there. I was looking at the can thinking, oh, well, while we're talking, like, what's in this one then? And obviously I now know, but that's fine. I'll see what I can pick out, if anything. But
So your tap room, how often is that open?
It's Thursday to Sunday.
Is it a regular crowd of locals that come into the tap room? Or I guess in the summer you get a lot of the sort of holiday makers popping by?
No, actually. So, but this year I expected a lot more than we got. Not in a negative way, but it's become a bit more of a locals haunt. And I think that's for a couple of reasons. Where we are in 3 Milestone, we're pretty far from the sea in terms of Cornwall. I mean, we're only probably still 8-10 miles. For Cornwall, that's pretty far. So you don't tend to get that tourist crowd that are going to want to come and sit and drink with the views, because there's bars around Cornwall that have that. And the town I'm located in only has a St Austell pub and a social clubs. They're a little bit limited on craft beer or just something different. So I kind of, ended up being a little bit of an old locals boozer, which I'm pretty happy with.
Yeah, so that must actually be quite nice. You haven't got nerds like us coming in, bending your ear about the beer, and you've got a really appreciative crowd. That's like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I still get really hardcore beer nerds in, and I've definitely had those travel down, and they've seen that I've opened, and they've been like, yeah, next time I'm in Cornwall, I'll be there. But I do enjoy that. Like, I don't think you can open a brewery tap room unless you enjoy talking to beer nerds, because it's part and parcel with what's going on. That's me all over. Like, I love the fact that I spent 3 days on my own, brewing in my own world, and then 4 days, well, 3 days because I don't work the Sunday, talking to people and being a bit more extroverted. That's the perfect mix for me.
I'm interested in you being in your own world when you're doing the brewing. So it's like a form of escapism, really, when you're brewing then. You can just do what you want, and because you're your own boss, like a lot of people we talk to, that you haven't got to answer to anybody. You're just in your own world doing what makes you happy.
Yeah, it's definitely quite cathartic. It's lovely as well being your own boss, in that you can make decisions based on beer quality, how you perceive it, and rather than brewing to numbers. It's also really nice because my taproom model is, I'd say probably 90% of what I brew is sold through my taproom. Everything you brew, I make, I'm going to be seeing that beer for the next 2 or 3 months in the taproom. So I kind of weirdly really try a lot harder to make sure it's going to come out absolutely amazing, because if it doesn't, I'm going to be the guy serving these pints.
I am just going to have to say, I'm really enjoying Love Letter, but I am going to have to pull you up now because I'm having a look. And there's a beer you need to tell us about. Dave, you might have had it at a festival or something, but you have done a smoked pretzel stout. I want to know more about this.
Yeah, I sent you a box off about a week before I canned it, and I felt pretty guilty. Oh, nice. Yeah, so it was a collab with Steamtown Brewery in Eastleigh, Hampshire. So I've somehow ended up, I think it's through my Brewhouse and Kitchen days, because they're quite heavily Bournemouth area based. I've ended up making friends with a few breweries over there and doing collabs during my years as a brewer. There's a brewer there, Aaron, who I previously worked with Fallen Acorn when we did with those guys when I was at the Driftwood. And we wanted to do a collab together. I love the idea of breaking down foods and experiences when you're eating and trying to mash them into beers, typical stouts. So a couple of examples of that is the cognac barrel-aged marshmallow stout I did previously, and I'm going to do again. So that was a time when I was with friends and somebody had a little bottle of cognac and we were roasting marshmallows, and it was just like this pairing is just incredible. And it was the same with the pretzel. Like, when you think about Germany, as bad as maybe as stereotypical as it sounds, you think smoked foods, you think bready, kind of stodgy, carby foods, and that's saltiness as well. That's kind of where we went with that one. And we used a load of pretzels in the mash tun and also a load of salt on top of that to give it a nice, it's not Go's levels of salt, but it's a pretty salt-heavy beer. it's come out so sessionable as well. It's not hugely smoky, but yeah, it's actually dangerously drinkable, which I didn't expect it to be.
That sounds amazing, doesn't it?
It really does.
So what did the pretzels do then? Did they ultimately give it more body?
They look great on social media. So you can use bread in the mash tun, and you are going to get some sugars from that. It's not a particularly good way of making beer. Obviously, toast, the brewery that use surplus bread. It is possible, so it would have added some sugars, but the main thing would have been the salt from the pretzels. Any of the caramelization that come off baking them. Yeah, if I'm being honest, a lot of it was it just looks cool putting pretzels in a mash tun. We kind of deconstructed the whole pretzel element, so we started using a little bit more bready malts and used a Maris Otter base malt instead of a standard one, just to give it a bit more kind of bready sweetness.
I think what comes across, Dave, is that here we have a brewer who really thinks about the beers he's making. It's not just a clamour to get out another hazy pale because that's what people want. What you said there about you were sitting there with a bottle of cognac, toasting marshmallows, and that's how the beer came around. Most beers you find like that have not come about through a story like that. It's just a brewer saying, what can we put in here? What can we do? There's not a story behind it like that. You've thought about it. I love that.
Yeah, it happens a lot. I love cooking if I ever get time outside of the brewery. I love putting those flavors together. So brewing feels like kind of putting my two passions together, and especially those stouts and those beers.
I think as breweries grow, that attention to detail that we're talking about here can be lost. But in your case, you've said you don't really want to grow. In 5 years' time, you don't want a whole army of staff. You still want it small. So that attention to detail will still be there.
That's the hope, yeah. I've got no plans to ever have a batch go out of the brewery that I haven't brewed. And we could speak again in a few years and I'll say I'm naive. Like, I've done that a lot since I opened this place. But this brewery, I set it up as effectively a retirement plan, a way of living the lifestyle I want to live, whilst also doing the job I want to do. So it's not a case of looking to get bigger and start making more profits and investing in bigger sites, bigger equipment. It's more just, to afford me the lifestyle I want whilst I enjoy doing what I do.
There'll be brewers listening to this now thinking, I want to know, is this guy actually making money out of what he's doing?
Well, we're still a young business at the minute, so no. But hopefully, once all the loans are paid off, I hope so.
But you think you can remain at a similar sort of size to what you are now and make money from it?
Yeah, so because of the way I spend what most breweries will spend kind of days, weeks of their life selling trade to trade, I spend that time trying to entice people into the tap room. So the reason being, rather than getting £1-2 a pint from trade customers, I'll be getting more. And that's not to say I won't do trade, because we are starting to look at doing some trade stuff, but we put all of our efforts into trying to convince people in Cornwall to come to the tap room. So it's a slightly different business model.
That is a different business model. And it feels like at the moment, just as a wider point, the pounds in people's pockets aren't going as far and everyone's being more careful generally. Are you finding with that model that a tap room, because when we've had breweries on in the past, the thing has always been like, we want to get a tap room going because we know that's how you can bring money in, because obviously the cost of from brewery into tap, we can make more on this. It makes sense. But is there the demand there? And also, are you able to keep the demand going, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at, because it feels like at the moment everyone's like, well, do I really want to go out and pay the money in a tap, or should I just get a can and drink it at home?
Yeah, it's definitely been, I've noticed, I'm still young in business in terms of how the business is flowing and the numbers, but I've noticed over the last couple of months, people are definitely tightening their belts. It is more difficult to get people out. The alternative is trying to sell to pubs that have the exact same problem. And I think the way I'm trying to run this business is a little bit more trying to remove a lot of those external factors, like there being less pubs around and like there being less drinkers in pubs overall, and try and, I guess, back to that control freak thing. If it doesn't go well, it's because of my inability to get people into my tap room rather than other pubs going slowly or going out of business.
And what do you think when you see, I see this a lot on sort of groups on Facebook, people saying, I tried to sell to this pub and such a pub is paying 70 quid for a certain
bar, for example.
How can you compete with that? Or do you just not even attempt to compete with that?
how long have you got? You can't and you shouldn't. To me, I'd maybe art back to a more regionalized industry where, especially with cask beer, where cask beer didn't travel. If you wanted, so say for instance, in Doombar's heyday, if you wanted a Doom bar, it should have always been that you come to Cornwall and you drink one. And you know that the publicans are super passionate about Doom bar. Like some of the pubs down in Cornwall are still using pump clips from the 90s because they were that passionate about this product. And that's who you want serving your part of Doom bar, not somebody 300 miles away who is just another guest beer to them. And I think that should be the case where you can is to regionalize beer a little bit more and keep it in its heartland and homeland where people care about the quality of it. The majority of the pubs that are buying these firkins or these keg beers or cask beers at 70 quid a pop, they aren't looking for quality anyway. They're probably looking for high GP. It's quite a different market. So that's compounded in Cornwall as well. Because we have St Austell Brewery down here who own, I don't know the percentage, but it's a lot, probably in and around, I don't know, 50% of the pubs I seem to see in Cornwall are owned by St Austell Brewery. 40 of us, even though we get on really well, are really kind of limited to the pubs we can sell into.
That is a problem not localised just to Cornwall. I was in a pub at the weekend, which is owned by there are two big breweries in Suffolk, and it's owned by one of them. And they had a beer festival on, and they've done this every year for a lot of years. And I was chatting to the person who runs the pub, and he said, look, I would do more of these, but we're lucky actually to still be able to do this one because it's sort of something that was hanging around before the brewery sort of took it on full, and they allow us to do this one, and that's it. Other pubs in the area would love to be able to do it, and when they ask this chain, no chance. And to me, and we were talking about it, it is so short-sighted because the people who will come to that, yes, someone like me will drink all of the guest beers because they're the guest beers, and I'll have had that chain's beers. Other people will come in and have those chain beers because they're familiar with them, and they might have one guest. So you're still going to make your money. It baffles me that there's that sort of stranglehold on not allowing anyone else in the door because it's all about beer in the end. That's what Dave and I usually end up saying.
Yeah, it should be. I get those. These are monstrous businesses at this point. They've got to make the numbers work, and I think that's where we are in the Western world in general. I think we're all hell-bent on eking out a little bit more profit for the shareholders. Yeah, there's another real bugbear of mine with that as well, is that there's a lot of pubs that are tied to a brewery. It's almost like ghost tied. You don't know as a consumer that they are tied to that brewery because the brewery, 9 times out of 10, the way they get them is we'll do you a fancy cellar fit. We'll fit the cellar out, brand new fans, brand new Python, but you've got to have our beers on the tap. And a lot of times pubs are still called tree houses, which I guess technically they are, but you're going in there and you're getting the same rotation of beers that are from this catalogue from the big brewer. And that is just another punch in the guts, really, for small brewers who could be based 5 miles or less from this pub and are not allowed to be stocked.
Yes. Again, that's a nationwide problem. You go, wherever you go in the country, there are these chains. And like you say, you can think of, God, why am I here and there is nothing from X, Y, and Z on the taps? It should cost them nothing to get it in, etc. And But as you say, it doesn't fit the model. If I had the money, I would love to set a pub up and be able to be truly independent free house because they are few and far between now.
Touched on a few things there that really wind you up. In your day-to-day work as a brewer, what winds you up the most? What really...
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to stay on tap, but I look at it, so...
Surely you don't take any notice of that these days.
Well, it's hard not to because every check-in and every comment about your beers is potentially marketing, either positive or badly, your brand. So, yeah, I've been known to bite on a few and write a little comment. I just have to read it in there. I've had to delete a couple, but yeah, I'm more level-headed with the answers. But yeah, I don't know. That really maybe gets on me, especially when you've got a beer that you're really proud of. And like you were saying earlier, it's kind of, you built it ground up from an experience or from ingredients you really wanted to use. And it gets just absolutely hammered because it's not a hazy pale ale.
What really bugs me is when you've got somebody who doesn't like sour beers for example, and they'll check in a beer that's a sour and say, oh, I don't like this.
Yeah.
No, you won't like it. It's a sour and you don't like sours, but they'll give it a rating anyway. And of course, it brings down your average rating.
There are a lot of usually more craft inclined kind of hype type bars that will look on Untapped before they buy your beers. And probably, I guess that's the only way they're really going to know your beer's any good or not. Sometimes it's quite disheartening when you get scores because it's not the style the person wanted to drink that night.
I also think as well with Untapped, the biggest problem I have with it is when you get beers from breweries that are hyped up. And I think there is now a lot of people just sort of looking at what everyone else has said almost and going, oh, no, I should probably give this a good rating because everyone else said it is good. And I think there's a lot of herd mentality goes on with it now. I've always been a harsh reviewer. But on that same tip, over the years, my average review has gone up, which I think reflects very well on the scene because it says to me that I'm having more good beer than bad. And I think if you go back 5-10 years, I think the quality has gone up. But I think there's an awful lot of someone, insert big-ish UK brewer releases Dipper or...
From Cornwall, you're thinking Verdant and what's that beer they do every year? What's it called? Yeah, Putty, and then Chubbles from Cloudwatch, all these types of beers, if people think they need to like them.
They come out and it will all be 4.2 and we've done it on the pod and you haven't, you go, it's fine. It's absolutely fine, but it's not something that I'm going to remember at all. But there is this, like I say, this herd thing of people just feel obliged to give it a good review because if they don't, like, oh, did I do something wrong because everyone else has said it is good? So
I do the opposite. If I see a beer with a low rating, I like to give it I want to give it a bit of a boost. Yeah.
Is that what you did for me? There was a beer review, I can't forget their name, a couple of years ago. They did something I really liked. And they were like one of the Instagram beer reviewers. And they set up a tasting where they removed the labels from all the cans and send them out to all the other beer reviewers. And they'd have a really big group tasting and actually review these beers based on their merits rather than whose label's on the beer.
If there was one thing that you could change in the beer industry, what would it be and why?
Right, number one, collabs between breweries that have never met, specifically when they pretend they have met or they pretend they're good mates. That gets them all with quite a lot. I get it because they're sharing each other's customer list and they're widening their reach by collaborating with these breweries, but it just doesn't feel very authentic to me. I love when collaborations come together because brewers or members of the brewery have been in a situation where they've really connected and wanted to take that further with a collaboration where their two beer styles mix, kind of complement or contrast each other, or they come up with a really good idea. But it stresses me quite a lot when you see the same kind of circle of cool brewers just working their way around, collaborating with each other just to sell kegs to pubs. I feel like it never really feels like it's a particularly inspiring beer either. It's usually just a hazy with, I don't know, a different hop in. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. If that, we've said this before, like you get these ones where it's essentially just putting the badge on the can. Nothing else has happened. Whoever's brewed it, the other person's gone, yeah, well done. I'll send you, put our label on the can. Great, done. Like, that's it.
If I drink a collab beer, I want to be able to taste elements of both breweries in that beer. And a good one you can, but there are too many, like you say. They're just putting the name on the badge, turning up for a jolly, having a good few beers, and knocking a beer out. Meaningless.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm not going to drop people's names, but I know collabs where the visiting brewer didn't even go to the brewery. It's a big marketing exercise, but I get it. They've got to sell beer. I don't know. It feels very disingenuous. And I think craft beer fans can be led down a path quite a lot with these sometimes, especially with breweries that have really got a lot of hype going on, and it's really disappointing when you see them treating people like that because craft beer is not expensive anymore. I think, yeah, people deserve a bit better than that.
Number 2, you said you'd got 2.
Yeah, so I think second one for me would be going back a little bit to the regionalisation of beer is, I think, spoons, basically. I'd love to see just a move away from still selling beer at the same price as 10 years ago. Why can't anybody else do it? And that whole mentality of the unfortunately older drinkers that basically think that the craft beer industry is robbing them and we're becoming millionaires, when I think what's happening is we're using higher quality and more ingredients in beers, and adding a layer of complexity to the beer industry that should be there. And it really stresses me out when people that, say, for instance, are members of CAMRA and in the 70s and 80s fought against the mass-produced keg lager for the British industry to be in a position where we can express ourselves, and people like myself can still exist, because that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for CAMRA. And then those guys are really upset that my beer's hazy. Like, you're the reason that I'm brewing this beer, because you fought for people to express themselves and create something that the mass producers can't create. And we're at that point. The beers that I've got here wouldn't sit on a supermarket shelf. They never will. And that's great. We're in a position where we've actually got what those guys wanted. So it's really frustrating when people aren't willing to embrace change a little bit and hop on board.
Do you still think there's a place for CAMRA in this day and age?
Probably not now, no. I think it was a reaction to the market at the time. I think there are people within CAMRA that are definitely still relevant and needed in the beer industry, but I think they should redirect their efforts into, probably at this point, campaign for helping pubs stay up, and whether that needs to change the name or the direction they're going in. But yeah, I've struggled to understand what they're up to recently.
I feel like CAMRA, as an observation, have run out of steam now. I agree with Mike. I don't necessarily know what they're offering anymore. Even going back like 3 years maybe, felt like they were still quite vocal and were like, there was an agenda or there was a sort of point they were proving or trying to help prove, but now I don't really hear about them anymore.
I suppose if you're a member of CAMRA, you get your 50p off in spoons, don't you? Or whatever it is.
I think it feels like people are just wanting it to be the 90s, the 80s, 90s still, where they won the war and they could have their beers. It's a war against keg beer, nice. They've won the war against keg beer, and then they're in the happy place with their £1.50 pints, and it's not possible now. And I've been in heated debates so many times with people that don't understand why beer costs 5 times as much as it used to. I don't know. Everything else does as well.
I've seen CAMRA members walk out of places because all the beer for sale is hazy. How ridiculous is that? How ridiculous is that? That you would walk out of a venue and not support a brewery because the beer is hazy when you have supposedly fought this battle.
But the other thing as well is, like, going back to these 70 quid kegs and that, like, quite a few of them and the casks are of these sorts of beers which were forefronts of the style. They're now, you go to certain pubs and you get pints of macro lager and essentially now what is macro cask for the same price as what you could get your beer on tap for. And that doesn't seem right.
No, and they are still selling them a lot cheaper, which is where we then get squeezed out, because the pubs are used to that margin. And it's a pretty huge margin at that point. But I'm not saying pubs are making loads of money, because we know they're not. They're used to that. So then when I'm saying, or me and my other small brewers are saying, it's probably going to cost you £100, £110 for this cask, all of a sudden it's never going to happen, because their margins just will not take it. And to be fair, what you hear of Timmy Taylor's landlord going for 100 plus, and that's knocking on to be the biggest selling cask beer in the country. And you wonder, if they can do it, why are all of the other guys still selling it at, I don't know what you...
Why are they in a race to the bottom?
Yeah, exactly. It's perceived value, isn't it? Cask beer apparently isn't worth more than £5 a pint because it's come from a cask.
Now, usually I would say at this point of the podcast, where do you see yourself in 2 years or 3 years' time? But I think I know where I see you. And I see you pretty much the same as you are now, actually. But hopefully loan-free, debt-free, and making some money out of what you're doing, but still having that same passion for what you do and making these great beers. Would that be fair, do you think?
Yeah. I'd love to have more beer out into bars that really care about the product and can sell it as well as I do. And we've got a couple of those that we supply to at the minute, but it'd be nice to branch that out and do a bit more trade. I'm being super picky about where we do that. Really don't want to get into a point where we're at the race to the bottom to try and shift isn't enough trade beers to pay the bills. So yeah, it's a really tentative, slow and steady growth of the business, and hopefully we can do it in a way that's a bit more achievable and long term than. I
get the idea that there is no rush whatsoever. You're happy just to take everything as it comes, and there's no mad urgency in your own time, basically.
Yeah, for me, it's about the tap room is our huge focus, is making that somewhere that people want to be. So Our main focus is high quality beers served in like a relaxed environment where people feel welcome. And those are the three things that if we're umming and ahhing about doing something, if it doesn't add to any of those 3 points, then we don't tend to do it. So that's the focus.
And for people who haven't had your beers, you need to get hold of some and have them, because I'm yet to have a bad one. But for people who might be listening to this thinking, oh, maybe next time we're down in Cornwall, maybe we should go and have a little look at this tap room. What's a typical night in your tap room? What does it look like? What's going on in there?
So like most of the tap rooms, we have food vendors pop up. So there's a lot of those in Cornwall, really good high quality foods. We have music on every Saturday night as well. So the tap room seats about 75, 80 people. So it can be quite a good buzzing atmosphere on the nights when we get a lot of people in. We do open mic nights, do quiz nights, pretty much everything your local community pub would do, really. We try and kind of keep that vibe going.
And if people want to know more, give us all your social details.
Yeah, sure. So we're at Mason Brewing Co. on Instagram. That's where the bulk of it. Facebook as well. I'm way too old to do any of the trendy social media, so we tend to avoid that. I'm terrified of it. But yeah, those are the two main social platforms. And we've just uploaded a shiny new website, some merch on, and that's about it.
Well, thanks a lot to Mike there. Great interview and wonderful beers as well. And there's good news, because since we did that interview, Mike has set up a web shop at masonbrewing.co. And if you head over there and use the code Daftaboutcraft, you can get 15% off your very first order. Here we go. It's time for Tried and Tested now. What we've been drinking since you last heard from us, which was before Christmas now. Dave, what have you enjoyed the most?
Well, as I sort of said at the top of the episode, I did do dry January, so that rather knocked out a long period of time. And I'll be honest, I can't necessarily remember what I had over Christmas in terms of something that's stuck with me since then. However, once January was over, on February the 1st, on Sunday, I went to Edwardstone and the White Horse. And they had reopened about a week earlier because they had a January break, and they had done a collab which came out in January with Burnt Mill, and they'd reopened with sort of Burnt Mill takeover. So there was a few Burnt Mill beers on. However, the beer that I actually enjoyed the most when I was there came from Braybrook, and it was their black lager. Yeah, it was really, really nice. 5.2%, I think it was. It didn't necessarily have the roastiness that you sort of get with some of the black lagers. And we know that Braybrook specialise in lagers and lager styles, etc. It was just a really, really nice pint. Funny how your mind works, but they also had the Braybrook glasses. I don't know if you've seen their sort of pint glasses. They're quite old school. They're those sort of dimpled tankard type ones. And I did take a picture of it. It just really lent itself to the experience. And obviously, after a month off, all beer was going to taste good, and it continues to do so. But yeah, that's the one that's just lodged in my mind a few days later still. So for me, yeah, Braybrook, their black lager.
Interesting. Well, you were at the White Horse there, which is home of Little Earth Project. Are they still brewing there, or have they stopped?
There was plenty of their stuff still available, but I think it's on a sort of as it goes, it's gone type basis. None of the, fortunately, founders weren't around as it was a Sunday, but there was still plenty of Little Earth beers available. The main sort of bit of lagers and the table beer type stuff and all that was there, but then there was the board of what else was on was really quite varied. I did have a Bier de Garde from Wilderness, which was very nice as well.
It sounds like you enjoyed coming out of dry January. My tried and tested is Bruges. So not a beer, just Bruges, because I don't know why it's taken me 48 years to get to Bruges. I've already planned the next trip to Bruges and the one after. We're going in August and September. We enjoyed it that much. But everything there is just so different to drinking in this country. From the glassware to the styles of beers to the amount of beers, everything. Well, you know this, you've been there. I didn't get to sample some of the places I wanted to go because they were on an extended Christmas break. De Gar, for example, was closed, and a couple of other bigger ones. We'll get back to those in the summer, but it was just lovely. A lovely experience. And if you've never been to Bruges, you've got to go, haven't you, Dave?
You do, and it's funny because obviously anyone who's watched the film in Bruges when it's snowy and stuff, which it's amazing for that. We talk about Britain and when you get the chocolate box bit of the countryside. Well, Bruges is just the sort of backdrop to where you're drinking is unlike anywhere else, and it's a UNESCO heritage site for a reason. It's an incredible place to go, ever so small. Once you've been there probably 12 hours, you'll have covered it.
Although we kept finding little streets we hadn't been down, but we covered a lot of the same ground several times. But then you see different things. We actually found De Gare and found that it was shut. We'd been past the little alleyway where it is several times and not even noticed it. What was really frustrating about that place, it was the one we wanted to go to, but there were people in there actually drinking still, could sort of see through the windows. Let us in.
De Gare, I don't know if it's the best one. It is up there as probably my favourite one. It's a weird one because it's a little bit out of the centre, isn't it? It is very good. It feels like the one that it's where the locals go. But Cafe Rose Red is exactly the same.
Oh, that's a great place.
That's a big favourite as well.
Cafe Rose Red, if you go to Bruges, that is wonderful. It's just a different drinking experience. Obviously, the beers are different to what you get here, but it's all very relaxed. It's armchairs and fires. It's like country pubs with the most amazing beers.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, like it's really basic, but a lot of the beers begin at 6% and will go up to 10, 12. But people will sit there and they drink them. And it again, I say it's so basic. If you were given a bit of a British audience that kind of exposure, there would be carnage. But people just sit there and take their time and like go through 2, 3, 4 in a night, but it's all very evenly paced. They might get in there at 7, 8 o'clock and they're kicking out at 11, having had 3 beers, but 3 10% beers. It's just a completely different mentality, isn't it?
We went to Half Moon and they'd got cheese and meat platters. We had one of those with a couple of beers and it's just so lovely.
Did you get to go up on the roof in their tour?
No, we didn't do that actually. That's maybe one for next time. We saw people doing the tour, yeah. It did look good. A lot of table service as well. It's just it's a really lovely experience for drinking. It's not like, standing in a queue at Wetherspoons and having pints of beer slopped in front of you. It's a completely different experience. And if you've never been, you really should. The person me and Lisa went with another couple, and he'd never really drunk many Belgian beers. All he will drink now is Belgian beers. He's gone in the supermarket and bought loads. He absolutely loves it. He's literally falling in love with the whole scene there. And that's what it can do to you, I think. So get yourself over there. Manchester to Charleroi is not very expensive at all. Give it a go.
This is Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast. Daftaboutcraft, you're tuned to your favorite beer podcast.
I'm Ben from the Sober Boozers Club, for those of you that are unaware of me, which many of you probably are with good reason. I'm an alcoholic, essentially. I gave up drinking alcohol in January 2022 because of addiction. And in that time, I've kind of gone on to sample over 1,000 alcohol-free beers because although I had to stop drinking alcohol, the thought of living without beer was a quite sad one. So over the years, it's been 4 years now, I've kind of had from the terrible alcohol-free beers in the world to the sublime alcohol-free beers in the world. And arguably this year, or rather last year, 2025, we saw a bigger increase in quality overall than ever before. Breweries popping up with first-time releases that were mind-blowing, really. Breweries like Daya and Cloudwater and Northern Monk making alcohol-free beer a part of their regular release schedule. And even supermarket offerings got much better. I mean, Proper Job landed in the supermarkets in 2025, which completely changed the game in terms of supermarket beers for me. Lucky Saint releasing a wheat beer, but was really good. It's actually brewed in Germany, this wheat beer, and it shows because it's fantastic. And so many more beers popping up. I've seen Jiddler's Tipple pop up in Sainsbury's, their alcohol-free offering, which is really, really excellent. It's nice to see brands like this really making a move in the alcohol-free space. It's a weird one this year. It seems like this year there's been a bit of kickback on Dry January from hospitality venues and punters about people abandoning the local during the month of January. And I kind of see that argument. I kind of understand where hospitality venues come from because, let's face it, they're having a horrible time at the moment, and it's not fair. Which is why I've been trying to really champion these alcohol-free brews and trying to encourage venues to just stock a really decent range, because the options that are out there now are really, really good. And not drinking booze shouldn't mean that people can't go to the pub. Like, those two things don't really go together to me. Like, my whole thing is I still want to go to the pub. I still want to live exactly how I used to live. It's just now the drink in my hand is different to the drink that used to be in my hand. And there's certain venues that are really getting behind this, and other venues that seem to be fighting against it. And it baffles me, if I'm honest, because it's almost, I don't want to say it's free money, because again, I don't want to undermine the difficulties that venues are struggling at the moment, because it is really bloody tough out there, as I've said. But you've got this whole market in front of you, and people that might be willing to try these drinks that may otherwise have not been willing to try them. And they might then come back for more. You know, you've got designated drivers all the time. You've got people on antibiotics all the time, still wanting to go to the pub, but think that they can't have a beer because it's a Beck's Blue. And that's just not the case anymore. But this January, alongside that, I'm actually seeing a bit of a drop-off in alcohol-free beer releases. And I don't want to take any credit in this, but it was a big thing that I was saying last year to breweries when I was lucky enough to have a few R&D meetings with certain breweries about their January releases and their alcohol-free releases. And the one thing I'd kind of stress to them is, don't release a beer in January, because it's the most saturated time to be releasing an alcohol-free beer. Drop them in December instead. And that's exactly what we kind of saw this year. I mean, off the top of my head, Vault City releasing an incredible sour, Lost Pier releasing a nitro stout that, in my opinion, rivals Guinness, and so many other breweries just dropping absolute bangers in December. It was impossible to keep up with. Queer Brewing, actually no, Queer Brewing did release theirs in January. You see, the two things are kind of melting together now. I've got about 40 beers in my fridge at the moment that I haven't been able to sample yet because, December and January have been mental. I can't think of another word for it, to be honest. But it's a good time to be in the world of alcohol-free beer, and to notice that alcohol-free breweries are kind of mimicking what full-strength brewers are doing at the moment. So I'm seeing a lot of porters coming out at the moment, both in full-fat and alcohol-free variety, and this is what excites me, because we're now at a point where you can replicate almost any style of beer into an alcohol-free alternative. So I think that is something to look out for this year, is breweries really pushing the boundaries. I've heard rumblings of a certain bitter that is potentially going to be available in alcohol-free form, which really, really excites me. As I say, we've got porters coming through. I'm hearing about red ales in production. I haven't heard anyone doing a mild yet, which still upsets me. But I think we're at the point now where every major brewery, I mean, Pomona Island released the alcohol-free beer, and that was something I didn't think would ever happen. So I think we're at the point now where we're going to see pretty much every brewery in the UK, or at least the vast majority of them, have an alcohol-free option in their range, and that's what I've been kind of fighting for, I suppose. It's not that alcohol-free beer should in any way take over full-fat stuff, because I don't think it should. I think that's completely delusional. I don't think it ever will. But it's alcohol-free beer having a place in a roster of beers. You know, future venues having, say we've got venues with 10 taps on. Maybe 2 of those could be alcohol-free, rather than your token Beck's Blue, Guinness, Peroni, Heineken in the fridge. That's the kind of world that I think we're working towards. And I think as we see progression on the science and the exploration side of things, I think we're going to see it becoming much more accepted, and that's what excites me. Beers to look out for then. Supermarket-wise, if you want a lager, I would go for Estrella Damm. If you want a stout, it's got to be Guinness because it's just fantastic. If you're looking for a bitter, I'm going to say Proper Job. Now, that's an IPA technically, but I think it will scratch that itch in terms of bitter. If you're looking for a craft beer, Northern Monk, they have released a new batch into the supermarkets, and that is really consistent and really, really good. And if you want a wheat beer, Lucky Saints wheat beer is fantastic. In terms of out in the wild, the best producer of alcohol-free craft beer in the country, in my opinion, right now has to be Sam Ray over at We Can Be Friends. They release incredible beers. They've recently put out their first ever lager as well, and that was absolutely spectacular. So check out what We Can Be Friends are doing alongside your Cloudwaters, your Deas, your Verdants. We Can Be Friends absolutely have a place up there with the best of them, because since Mash Gang's kind of drop off, since the acquisition into a core range brewery, We Can Be Friends have taken that baton and just ran with it. So they're the ones to check out.
You're listening to Dave B and Dave D on Daft About Craft, the craft beer podcast.
On our last episode, my from the fridge beer was Titanic's Plum Porter, which I guessed correctly because it is so iconic. It has such a well-known aroma and taste to it. It's quite easy to identify. So we thought, is it the best plum porter out there, or are the modern twists on it that are better? Are the older styles that are better? Where does Titanic's Plum Porter fit into everything? So what we've done, we've got hold of a few different plum porters, and we're going to try them. Have you got Titanic's original there, Dave, or not?
Got Titanic, and then I've got 2 others. I technically have 3 others, but I don't think I can feasibly get through Titanic and 3 others after L9.
Here's a man who spent the whole of January drinking alcohol-free beers.
I know. I didn't have one alcohol-free beer.
I mean, we've heard from Ben on this episode talking about alcohol-free beers. So you did dry January without those alcohol-free beers.
I've never gravitated towards them when I'm if I'm driving somewhere, or I will just have either a soft drink or coffee or something. It doesn't do anything for me. If I want to have a beer, I want to have a beer. I don't think there was any point really where I started looking in the supermarket aisles at the alcohol-free ones thinking, oh, do I want to just have one of those for a bit of a taste? And I'd rather just have nothing or a beer.
I'm quite getting into them. I will drink them if I'm out and about and I'm driving. I don't mind them at all. I think it's just that, you still feel part of the crowd if you're drinking an alcohol-free beer in a pub.
And to be fair, I wasn't exposed to pubs in January either. I think I went in one for the whole month, which was for my mum's 70th. We went out for a meal and I thought, ooh, do I want their alcohol-free offering? And I had a pint of lime and lemonade instead.
Used to love a lime lemonade back in the day. Right, so I haven't got Titanic's Plum Porter. I've got the Grand Reserve.
Okay.
So I've got that and 2 others. So we've both got 3 beers. So why don't you open your original Titanic Plum Porter?
Okay. It's quite a few years since I've had Grand Reserve. In fact, the last time I had Grand Reserve, I was with you.
Yeah, it was here, wasn't it? And we thought, actually, we prefer the original.
Yes. If I remember rightly, I thought that Grand Reserve was just a bit too sweet.
Do you know what? I've just taken the lid off this bottle, and straight away, it does smell very sweet.
Look how much I've poured there. Oh, that's tremendous.
I mean, I haven't had it here because I know what it tastes like. I've had it many times. We think it's hard to beat. We'll find out today if it is beatable.
It just takes me back straight away because I remember finding this, probably getting close to 15 years ago or something, like various real ale pubs where I was throwing a lot of darts, and I remember having it for the first couple of times. Oh my goodness, so sweet on the nose, and then it's not that sweet to taste, but you still get a bit of plum. Like,
yeah, I've just had a couple of sips of the Grand Reserve, and while it's decent, I do prefer the original. It smells sweet, it is quite sweet, but right at the end, there's something that I'm not that keen on.
It's almost a little synthetic, if I remember rightly.
Yeah,
I would say the original's still pretty much faultless. The only thing I would say is it is probably better on cask.
But we know that, so we can factor that in here. So straight away, pitching Titanic's Plum Porter against their own Plum Porter Grand Reserve, the original is the winner. The Grand Reserve is actually quite dry at the end as well, which I don't like that much.
The original's a little bit dry, isn't it? It's that dry enough that you want to keep going back very quickly to it.
Yeah, this isn't necessarily that way. Right, so 2 down, 2 others to try. Who have you got?
Well, I'll give you the choice of which way I go with this. Do you want me to go for the traditional, or do you want me to go for the craft take?
That's exactly what I've got. So I want to end on the craft one. We'll both go OG, trad, craft. We'll both end on the craft one.
So traditional one comes with a voice note, and it comes via Elgood's, a brewery that you weren't familiar with because they are closer to me in Wisbech, down in the Fens, and Elgood's have been going since 1795, so they are comparable to Titanic in terms of length of service. So their plum porter is 4.5%, and I could go for the tasting notes and whatnot, but essentially what we're doing here is how does it taste compared to...
Right, so the first thing to ask you poured it out into your glass. What's the nose like? Because you can smell the Titanic plum porter at 1,000 miles.
It's there, but if Titanic's nose is a 10 in terms of just like strength coming out of the glass, this is more 6.
Okay.
It was there initially.
The thing about Titanic's is it's there when you start your drink and it's there at the end. It doesn't give way, does it?
This is there, but it is a bit more subtle. But it definitely has the same characteristics, but not quite as big and bold and fruity. Okay, so this one's more effervescent, way fizzier on the tongue compared to Titanic's. As we will hear from Marcus from Elgood's, it's definitely more subtle, and they will acknowledge that it's not as big and as fruity. Probably actually is worth just mentioning the tasting notes now. I've started to taste it because they say an award-winning dark porter with juicy plum aroma. I wouldn't disagree. Skillfully balanced with the finest Marisotta, amber, crystal, chocolate, and roasted barley malts for a rich, sweet dark beer with a fruity nose and underlying hop characteristics. And I would say that is absolutely bang on. The nose is fruity, but not as fruity as Titanic's. And then actually once you start drinking it, it's more beer that I think would go really well with like dark chocolate or something. That's what it lends itself to. And I think that might bring a bit more out of it.
Something to consider is that if you're a brewery making a plum porter, you know that Titanic is the best. So you don't want to try and replicate what they've done. You want to put your own twist on it.
Yeah, and I would say with Elgood's they have. That is definitely more subtle. The fruit is there, and you know it's there because it just is knocking around in the background. The malts that they've used and they mention are actually doing probably a little bit more of a lifting, and it is one that would definitely pair really well with some food. I don't think of Titanic and necessarily think I want to eat anything with it. I just kind of want to drink it.
So let's hear from Marcus anyway, and he can tell us all about Elgood's and their plum porter.
Hello, it's Marcus from Elgood's Brewery, just having a chat about plum porter in bottles. Our plum porter is a 4.5% traditional porter, brewed with just UK Fuggles hops, and a combination of pale ale malt, chocolate malt, amber, roast barley, and crystal. It's brewed with plum juice, concentrate, and it's a dry plum. It's not too sweet, not overly sweet at all. It's a very good food match for chocolatey things, barbecue things, duck. That cuts through the fat really nicely for the duck. It's gluten-free and vegan, and has won lots of awards. Elgood's Brewery was founded in 1795, and we've continuously brewed since then. We haven't had 100 years off or anything. We're still owned by the same family, Belinda and Jennifer Elgood, and we hope to be carrying on for a few more years. So please try the porter. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Right, well, thank you very much, Marcus from Elgood's. It's very nice to find out more about what you do there. So I have got, as my trad take on the plum porter, is Plum Pig from Black Country Ales.
Oh my goodness. Is Black Country Ales isn't pig on the wall and stuff, is it?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
The pub in our village where you've been, where you had your cider, that is a Black Country Ales pub, and they sell this in there at certain times of the year. Yeah, pig on the wall, that's one of their famous ones.
That's such a throwback because there was a pub, well, I hope and assume it's still going in Leicester, and they would always have Pig on the Wall and 2 other ones from Black Country Ales that were on as like their core. And back when I was the age I was for that, which was early to mid-20s, I did not care for those beers. But now I imagine I'd find them completely different.
Yeah, I think I fall into the same category as well, to be honest. Wow, I've just poured this out. First thing, poured it into the glass, and I can see it's more reddy in colour. It looks plummy in the glass. And also it smells plummy, whereas your Titanic's plum porter smells fruity, I always think.
Mm-hmm.
This looks plummy.
It does, yeah.
And smells plummy. And tastes plummy. Actually, that's really nice. I've had this before in Black Country Ales pubs, but not for a while. That is actually really good. However, it bears no resemblance whatsoever to plum porter from Titanic.
Which, as you said earlier, probably a good thing, because why do you want to try and better what is sort of the gold standard? If you can make something standalone but is standalone different, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, I think it is. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be drinking this beer if it wasn't for this feature, but it's really good. 4.3%, and it says it's a well-rounded dark ale bursting with plum flavours, and I can't really argue with that. It's very good. One thing I did notice on the list of ingredients, it says there's caramel in there. So I don't know whether that, I don't really get much caramel, but you usually get caramel from the malts, don't you? But whether this has actually had caramel added to it in some form.
I would have thought you'd notice that, because it should make it quite syrupy.
You'd think so, but it really isn't syrupy or synthetic in any way. Just, that's good. I like that.
I think we'd have been disappointed if trad breweries couldn't do this, although it is a style that has been adopted, as we'll find out in a minute with our craft ones. It is a traditional beer, isn't it, essentially? The porter, for one, very traditional, and then adding fruit to a porter, also very traditional. So if your breweries that have been around, in the case of Elgood's, a couple of 100 years, can't do it, that's worrying.
For me, that Black Country Plum Pig knocks spots off Titanic's Plum Porter Grand Reserve.
How does it compare to the OG?
I think it's a very different beer.
Mine wouldn't be a fair comparison for the Elgood's, because it is a very different beer. If I was having cheese or some meats and some chutneys and some jams and as I said, dark chocolate, I'd want that, I think, over Titanic. So it's got its little niche now for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. I've got another bottle downstairs, which will go down well.
Yeah, to be fair, Marcus, who we've heard from Elgood's, did send 4 bottles of plum porter, so I will make sure to keep at least one back for yourself as well, so you can try this one as well.
In our plum porter journey, we're now going to get a couple of craft versions. Which craft plum porter have you got, Dave?
This comes from Amity. It got towards the end of Dry Jan, and I knew I was ready to start it, because I was just getting bored, and I started looking around the internet, and I was like, where can I get some beers? And Amity kept, fair play, their tracking cookies must have done a lovely job, because they kept flashing up on social media saying they were having a big sale, 40% off. And to be fair, it wasn't like 40% off, the Radler and nothing else. Like they were doing a thing, and they also had a beer which might feature in Hype or Tripe next month. Don't know, that's TBD. But what they did have as part of their range was a plum porter, and I thought, oh, well, there we go. This is serendipity. I've got to get it. So it is Amethyst, makes sense, purple, 4.6%, and they describe it as a rich and smooth plum porter, blending deep roasted malts with a natural sweetness of ripe plums. And then there's a bit more of a description. There's subtle hints of chocolate and caramel, apparently, in the body. So more caramel again, and refreshing balance of sweet and tart. Now, I don't associate a plum porter with being tart, so that'll be interesting.
Purple can as well, like that.
Okay, there is plum.
Oh no, I know what's coming here.
It doesn't smell the same as the traditional plum porters coming out of the bottles.
It's worth saying, actually, the beers we've had up to this point have all come out of bottles. So now we're on to can.
Now, interestingly, it says it contains barley, oats, hop, yeast and mortar.
Any plums?
It doesn't say anything. It doesn't say anywhere about what the plums, if any, are involved. So is there plum puree? Is there no plums at all? Like, it doesn't specify, which is mildly concerning. Anyway, let's see what we've got. Paul's the correct colour. A bit reddy. More reddy than purple. Okay, now it's come out of the can. It's in a bigger vessel and it's got a bit of a chance to breathe. Yes, there is sweetness. It's kind of plum jam sweetness, which doesn't shock me. It is sweet, and it smells sweeter than Titanic.
I'm going to put it out there that you're going to drink that, and the first word that's going to trip off your tongue is synthetic.
I want to disagree, but it does feel a little bit synthetic. Not horrendously so. It gives way to a decent enough backbone. In some ways, this is actually closer to Titanic.
They've managed to capture that plumminess.
What I would say is they've got that sweetness giving away to non-sweetness. Now we're in a bit of a, not risky, but difficult game, because now this feels to me more of a direct comparison. So now you are essentially You're not trying to go out and do something standalone-ish so that you can go, yeah, it was plum porter, but as we said, like for me, Elgood's, I could find how I would want to drink this. To me, feels like it's going toe-to-toe. So now you've got to go, is it as good?
I wish you could see his face. He's treating the whole experience of drinking this beer with huge caution.
I think the problem I have is it's trying to go toe-to-toe with Titanic for me. And that's just a very hard battle to win. It sort of does it all quite well, but not to the same level. Like the bitterness sort of is a bit too... doesn't make me want to go back. The fruit flavour is there, but it doesn't quite feel authentic.
It sounds like they have tried to produce Titanic's plum porter rather than their own take on it.
I think that's a reasonable take. It doesn't say anywhere inspired by, but it feels inspired by. I don't know if that's a shame, because if someone drinks this who hasn't drunk a plum porter before and they like it, and then they happened, for example, to see Titanic's plum porter on and think, oh, I might try that, then it's really good because they'd not only get that beer and they've supported a craft brewery, but they then get to try Titanic's, which is, for me, better. And then that's really good. So I don't want to be like really bashing it, but it isn't as good as Titanic. For me, the long and the short of it, it isn't. And the problem I probably have with it overall is, whereas I could go and I'd see Elgood's on a cask somewhere and go, yeah, okay, I know what that's like. I can have one of those. I'd see this and I'd be like, yeah, I know what this is. It's kind of a bit of a mimic and I don't really want that.
So your 3-2-1 here is, in third place is Amity Elgood's, and number one, top of the charts, is the original Titanic plum porter.
Yes, but as I'm trying to sort of strenuously say, Elgood's is actually really nice. It's just a bit different. Right,
well, I'm excited about my craft take. Mine is from Wiper and True.
Now, I think I've had this years ago, and I can't remember what I made of it, but I think I checked it in. So while you're having a look, I'm going to see if my Untapped review is around. But I think I've had this.
Before I open the can, just look at that can.
It is a lovely piece of can art, isn't it?
Wiper and True's cans are very simple, but this is wonderful. So you've got a white can, Wiper and True in black lettering, and then the design is a dog curled up in front of a fire, and they're both in red, which just says warm, winter, everything I like. And this is a plum pudding porter, 6.7%.
Can you see that is what it's evolved from?
Wow, that's interesting. So when did you have that then?
So I checked this in Christmas Day 2017.
Oh, wow, so I'm now having your Christmas Day beer from 9 years ago. And what did you rate it?
No, I'm not going to influence you. You try it first, because we're now talking about a 9-year-old check-in. It might have changed.
I think it's worth reading the tasting notes on this. Cozy dark beer that's perfect for the colder winter months. Onto a rich dark malt base, we layer sticky, delicious notes of caramelized plum and sugar with top notes of vanilla. Best enjoyed in an armchair besides a roaring log fire. I'm not doing that. I'm sat at a desk next to a radiator. That's the best I can do. Store and serve chilled. Our unfiltered beer may contain sediment. Pour gently. Okay, well, I'm going to do just that. It's not that chilled, I have to say, but I'm looking forward to this. This is actually a little bit stronger than the Grand Reserve. Oh, well, first thing to say is that the nose is very coffee rather than plum.
Interesting.
So more porter. I don't dislike that. It smells nice, but it's not what I expected.
So you sort of setting up thinking that this is going to taste like a porter with some plum rather than plum with some porter?
I think that's the way I'm heading, yes. I can't even show you that pour. It's so bad. Well, I will. I don't know what happened there. It's like 1/3 liquid, 2/3 head. I have to wait for that to settle. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to just drink a little bit out of the can. Interesting. So the observation was that on the nose, it smelled very coffee, not very plummy, and it tastes quite coffee and not very plummy as well.
Okay. Does it taste plummy at all to you?
Well, I want to let that glass settle and drink it out of the glass rather than the can, so I'm probably being influenced by the aroma, but I'll just go again from the can while that horrendous pour settles down.
It's a worthwhile exercise, because some people do drink from cans and don't pour out.
I don't get a huge amount of plum. I really want to, but I don't. I like it. It's a nice beer. And if you said to me, this is a coffee porter, I'd say, yeah, this is a nice coffee porter. But it's not. It's a plum porter.
Do you think if you were to have some, as we said with Elgood, some food or some meat or something, would that bring it out, do you think?
Love some meat and some cheese, but it would still be a coffee porter.
Interesting, isn't it? The craft take so far.
They're good beers, but not a good representation of the style. Awful Pour has calmed down a little bit, so I'm going to go for that.
That's reasonable.
Oh, this is interesting. This is really interesting, right? So on the nose there in the glass, there's more plum. In fact, the coffee has given way to plum.
So now you've got it out of a contained vessel into the glass and it's breathing a bit.
And it tastes like plum. Ooh, that's messing with my head a little bit. So when we had the guys from WSET on the podcast, beer education episode last year, we learned that if you drink from a can, you lose a huge amount of aroma and taste. And that, oh my goodness, that is like drinking two different beers and smelling two different beers. That's fascinating.
Which, just to touch on that, because without pulling the curtain back too far, there does look like there's probably going to be another beer education for us in coming months. It makes sense because you wouldn't, well, some people do, but you wouldn't drink a bottle of wine from the bottle, would you? You put it into the glass because you want it to breathe. So why can't that apply to beer as well?
I think it's a very British thing, drinking from the can.
Well, yeah, if you're drinking like Foster's, I know what you mean.
Honestly, that's no joke. That is a monumental difference, that beer from the can and from the glass. It's huge. They taste not like the same beer at all. In actual fact, from the glass, that is a plum porter, and that's a really good plum porter.
Oh, how good a plum porter, though? That is the question.
The number one is untouched. We can't impeach on the number one. It is still Titanic.
And why is it that Wiper and True can't get there? Because it sounds interesting, because yours actually sounds like it's really come through as a good, strong plum porter. My Amity one, no, I don't want to go back to it particularly, which is unfortunate. I don't think it's a bad beer, but I think it's not doing brilliantly in the company it's in.
I think the problem is that we both associate plum porters with Titanic. It's so clever. I mean, that they've done a wonderful job with what they do, because this whole feature is about rating beers against their...
We are slightly conditioned, I think that's fair. But at the same time, if someone's had come along and been like as close to, if not better, I would be confident that either one of us would go, you know what, that gives it a good run for its money and it might just be better, and so be a bit concerned about it. But I've come away from it that what you can do is you can make a plum porter and you can make it different enough that it's still a really good beer and doesn't tread on anyone's toes, and you can make it have its own saleable thing. And if you do try and go down the route of trying to mimic, it's not going to go well. That's what I've got from my two beers. And interestingly, I had a third beer which is in the fridge, which is from a local brewery, St. Peter's in Bungay, and I've had it before. And if I'd have had it tonight, I didn't get it because I purposely want to try the Amity, but I know what I would have said about that. And their one is really plum jam, so it's different again because it's sweeter in my mind's eye, or whatever it is. I can taste that one, and I know it's different again, but it's not different in a bad way. But again, they're a more traditional brewery.
Isn't it amazing though? You say plum porter and you think, oh yeah, a plum porter should taste this way, but we've had 6 different plum porters between us tonight, and not one is the same.
That's very true. And the thing is as well, what irritates me slightly with this style, as in a fruited porter, is we've seen here that it can be done really well, and it can be done subtly, and it can be done with the nose and da-da-da-da. What really irritates me is when breweries do this and it's just a porter, and the taste of what they said is going to be in there. And it doesn't always have to be plum, because you can use other hedge fruits. You can use cherry, for example. I know
Yeah, cherry porter, yeah.
They do, and I had that a while ago, and I didn't like it.
That's again though because you're pitching it against the plum porter.
Probably, but I knew what. Yes, that's probably fair actually, because I knew kind of what I wanted, and it tasted like cherry tunes. But this is going back a few years, and I haven't tried it since. But it does irritate me when porters are done where things are added, and then actually not enough has been added in enough quantity. And I don't think that's that hard a thing to do. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So, right, so you had this Wiper and True beer that I've got Christmas Day 2017, and beers evolve, and this has probably changed a lot in 9 years. But what did you rate it back then?
So I wasn't wildly impressed. I gave it 3.25.
Okay.
And my description of it was very malty, and it kind of covered the fruit flavours.
Well, that's how it smelt in the can to me and tasted in the can. But when I got it in the glass, then those flavours came bursting out of it. I think it's fair to say that beer's evolved, and of course it should.
I should try it again. So I obviously gave it 3.25. 9 people on Untapped who are my friends have done it, and it's 3.48. Now, we know habitually I'm a harsh marker, but everyone overall, nearly 6,000 people have checked this in, and it's at 3.67. So that says to me I'm probably a bit low on that and probably need to try it again.
I think that's probably a very different beer to what it was 7 years ago.
Sounds like it, doesn't it?
It's really good, actually. I was a bit dismissive to start with because, honestly, the taste in the can, if you can get hold of a can of this, you, Dave, and anybody else listening, and then pour it out into the glass, it's like two different things. Just shows you, don't drink out of cans. Even if you were drinking it in the park, you'd take a glass with you, wouldn't you, Dave?
I would, yeah. Got to show some decorum in these matters.
We're refined people. Well, I think so. So your 3-2-1 is as discussed. My 3-2-1 is still at the top of the tree is Titanic. Number 2 is Wiper and True. And I tell you what, that's quite a close run thing. They're not trying to be Titanic, but it's a very, very good beer. And then number 3 there, which was also good, but very different, was the Black Country Ales Plum Pig. 3 very different beers, but all the same style.
Titanic have had a lot of love here, so I think they can afford to take a little lump there. Grand Reserve, probably not the best beer.
In fact, to be honest, actually, of the 3 that I've just had, I'd put Grand Reserve at the bottom of those 3.
So perhaps, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, the OG is still there at the top.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. I think we've just about covered it. We are at the end of episode 79 of Daftaboutcraft, which means that number 80, that feels like a landmark. That'll be coming up next. And we can tell you now our interview is with Wookie Brewing, and it's a very interesting one. He was a real character we spoke to, and you can find out all about that in about 3 weeks' time, together with all our usual features. Probably Hype or Tripe will be back, and plenty more as well. So we'll see you soon.
Daft About Craft, the craft beer podcast.